Battle of New Orleans was the bloodiest battle of the War of 1812. It is also a very shocking victory for the Americans, though it was also totally involuntary, as you'll soon find out. Also, you'll also see that some of these pictures are not exactly correctly inside the Battle of New Orleans, but it'll have to do considering that I have to pull this off the internet, so thank you.
Previously, in Ghent, Belgium, American and British representatives had already begun peace talk to end the war of 1812. However, news takes time to travel, and British General Edward Pakenham had already decided to launch one final battle at New Orleans, the entrance to the Mississippi River. Once the British took over the city, they would be able to link up with Canada and split the United States in half.
The British had every reason for confidence. Their land invasion force was 10,000 well-trained, equipped nicely, and disciplined redcoats backed by a large fleet of ships. Standing against them was a hastily ragtag army of 4,000 free African Americans, militia, volunteers, pirates, and Native Americans. The battle had started decently well for the British too. The Americans had deployed a small flotilla to battle the powerful fleet of warships. The crew of the flotilla fought courageously until almost every single one of them was killed, wounded, or captured. Only slowed, the fleet landed their gargantuan army. Upon the American side, the soldiers had just finished digging a line of earthworks. Leading these troops was Major General Andrew Jackson, nicknamed Old Hickory by his men after the toughest wood on earth. Jackson wasn't there to lead his army to victory just for America, it was also for revenge. During his childhood in the Revolutionary War, all of his close ones had died at the hands of the hated lobsterbacks, and he himself was slashed by a sword and refused to clean a British officer's boots. This gave him a brutal hatred for the British, and he would indeed take out his revenge on them in the bloodiest way possible. So Jackson plans a surprise attack. At night, while the Redcoats were happily cooking their dinner, they were suddenly startled by the blast of the USS Carolina. Then American forces poured into the camp, and fierce fighting ensued. Hand-to-hand combat, bayonet duels, and musket firing at point-blank ranges were everywhere. By the time the British had shaken out their surprise, the Americans had gone back to their fortifications. Still confident, General Pakenham orders an artillery launch on the dug-up earth. Cannon fire shook the ground as the cannonballs blasted the American positions. This, however, had no effect. Then the Americans returned fire. The British, who were firing from behind barrels of sugar, instantly found their cannons obsolete as they had been covered by sticky, gooey, melted sugar. So Pakenham decides to do what the British do best: charge the dirt wall with everything they've got. The British general first orders some men to cross the Mississippi River to take over Jackson's flanks, where the American artillery can be turned against the earthworks. Then Redcoats would come in 3 different columns. The first would be the closest to the river and would serve as a diversion. Then the second would charge and storm the fortifications. And finally, Pakenham himself will lead the third column between the 2 other columns and throw his weight on whatever action needed more men. It's a powerful but too complicated plan, and the poor general will soon find that out. As soon as the plan begins, problems plague the British army. Strong currents of the Mississippi River push the smaller invasion force further downstream, and by the time they get to Jackson's flanks, it is already too late. Furthermore, as the main invasion begins, the Redcoats find that they've forgotten their ladders that they would have used to climb the earthworks. Still, Pakenham presses on. As they get closer to the earthworks, nothing happens. Then suddenly, the entire wall of earth is instantly ablaze with musket fire. The British, who were just about to try and climb the mound, got a faceful of lead balls. The confusion and chaos spreads through Pakenham's line. As the doomed general rides forward to try and rally his stumbling men, more musket balls zoom through the air. Major General Edward Pakenham is shot painfully multiple times before he is finally shot off his horse, this time with a fatal wound. The only line that had done any better than Pakenham's was the diversion force, which had managed to penetrate the fortifications. However, without reinforcements, the Redcoats of that line eventually was forced to flee as well. Andrew Jackson had remained near the center of his defenses the whole time, surveying the carnage with a calm expression. Finally, when the smoke cleared, the Americans saw quite a bizarre sight. The land was pooled in red, by blood and from the scarlet uniforms of the Redcoats. As they watched, they saw the hands of the still half-alive British soldiers reaching up from under whoever had died on top of them. The casualties of the British were 2,000 men, compared to Americans, which had only 20. The incredible victory at New Orleans catapulted Jackson's fame to presidency. When the news of the battle reached Washington, D.C., everyone was going wild with joy. Then, after about 1 week, the American representatives returned from their peace talk with the Treaty of Ghent, formally ending the War of 1812.